You're listening to the final frequency. It is 5:52 in the morning, day 2. I want to start this morning by telling you something honestly, because honesty is the only currency this microphone has left, and I am not going to spend it carelessly. I am at 49 hours without sleep. I know what that number means. I have read about it. 48 hours is the point where cognitive studies start using words like impaired and significant. Reaction time degrades. Short-term memory starts dropping things. People start seeing things that aren't there. Not hallucinations exactly, not at first, just a kind of fraying at the edges of attention, where the brain begins filling gaps with whatever it expects to find. I am telling you this so that everything I report this morning you can weigh against it. If I sound different, slower, or too fast, or like I'm repeating myself, that is why. I am still here. I am still careful. But I am 49 hours into a night that has not ended, and I think you deserve to know that going in. Here is where we left things. At 17 minutes past 5 yesterday evening, something broadcast. A 41-second tone, low frequency, with a rhythm inside it close to a resting human heartbeat. Every affected individual visible from this window, and as far as I can establish across the city, turned at the same moment to face northeast, toward a fire that has not gone out, and has not spread since before dawn yesterday. The government frequency I have been monitoring referred to an attractor, localized at the original site, St. Aurelius General Hospital, where this began, and separately to a contingency with a decision window of 72 hours. That window opened sometime yesterday morning, which means, as of this broadcast, we have less than 48 hours left in it. And at first light this morning, about 40 minutes ago, Six's group began moving. Six is the woman I made contact with 2 days ago, a former paramedic. 11 survivors, including her. They are moving toward the source of yesterday's tone, toward the fire, to see with their own eyes what is calling this city's empty people home. We have a protocol. Check-ins every 2 hours. If she misses one, I broadcast her last known position and her route, so that whatever happened to them is at least known. Her first check-in is due at 8. Until then, I am going to do what I can. Read your messages. Watch the street. Try to make sense of a night that gave me more questions than I had room to hold. This is day 2. This is the relay. And this is the final frequency. I want to tell you about the hours between my last broadcast and now, because something happened in the middle of the night that I have been turning over since, and I think it matters. At approximately 1 in the morning, I am working from memory here, and memory at hour 40 is not a precision instrument, so take the time with a wide margin. The tone played again. Briefly. Not the full 41 seconds. 6, maybe 7 seconds. And this time it did not come from the northeast. It came from the southwest, from St. Aurelius, from the attractor. I was awake. I was at this desk, half watching the street, and I felt it before I consciously registered it, a kind of pressure behind my eyes, gone almost as soon as I noticed it. And outside, the figures in the street, who have not moved from their northeast orientation since 5:17 yesterday, flickered. I don't have a better word for it. They did not turn. They did not move their feet, but for those 6 or 7 seconds, something in their posture changed, a kind of full-body tremor, all 11 of them, simultaneous, like a building settling. And then it stopped, and they were exactly as they had been, facing northeast, still. 2 points. One that gathers them, the attractor, St. Aurelius, southwest. One that called them, the tone, northeast, the fire. And last night, for 7 seconds, the gathering point sent something too. I don't know what that means. I want to be precise about the limits of what I'm telling you. I observed a brief tonal event, originating from a bearing consistent with St. Aurelius, coincident with a visible reaction in the affected individuals I can see. That is the observation. The conclusion, that these 2 points are in some kind of contact with each other, is mine, and I offer it as a conclusion, not a fact. But if I'm right, if the attractor and whatever is at the source of yesterday's tone are talking to each other, then this isn't 2 separate things happening in this city. It's one thing, with 2 ends. And 6's group is walking into the middle of it. I tried to raise her on our off-schedule frequency, just to tell her what I'd observed. No response, which is correct by our protocol. She keeps her radio off between scheduled windows now, to save the battery and to avoid drawing attention with transmissions at odd hours. I understand the logic. I didn't love sitting with it for the rest of the night anyway. I'm sorry. That's the first time I've done that on air in 2 days. 49 hours catches up with a person in small ways before it catches up in large ones. Around 3 in the morning I called my sister. She answered on the second ring. 2 rings means okay, that's still holding, and I felt something in my chest unclench when I heard the click of her picking up. The dogs were calmer last night, she said. They'd settled by midnight and slept through until she woke me up calling. She asked if anything had happened. I told her about the 7-second tone. I asked if the dogs had reacted. She went and checked. They were asleep. Didn't stir. Whatever that brief signal was last night, it didn't reach her side of the city the way yesterday's 41-second tone did. Either it was weaker, or it was aimed somewhere else entirely. Aimed at the fire, at the other end of whatever this is. I think that's enough about the night. The sun is up now, properly up, and in 20 minutes 6 is due to check in, and I find I am gripping the edge of this desk a little, waiting for 8 o'clock. Let's talk about something else until then. Let's talk about you. Messages came in steadily through the night, more than I've had on any previous night, which tells me word of this frequency continues to spread, radio to radio, the old way, the way information used to move before we forgot how necessary that skill was. I'm going to share 4 tonight. Take your time with them. We have until 8. The first is from a man I'll call T. He was, a teacher. Secondary school, on the eastern side of the city, closer to St. Aurelius than I am. He wrote a long message, and I'm only going to read part of it because some of it is for him and not for broadcast. He said the school where he worked has been visible from his flat for 2 days. He watched, yesterday, as the playground, empty since the first morning, slowly filled. Not with children, with affected adults. Standing in the playground, on the climbing frames, in the football goals. He counted, he said, because counting was something to do with his hands that wasn't shaking. 41. He counted 41 of them in a school playground by yesterday evening. He said, I taught there for 11 years. I know exactly how many children that playground holds at break time. It's almost the same number. I don't have anything to add to that. I just think you should know it happened, the way he needed someone to know it happened. The second message is shorter, and it's about the fire. A woman, I'll call her R, not the same R as my first night, a different listener entirely. The city is unfortunately full of people whose names start with letters I've now used twice, wrote that she has a clear line of sight to the northeast from her balcony, 18th floor. She said, it's not getting bigger, it's not getting smaller. But last night, around 1 in the morning, it changed color, for about 10 seconds, from orange to a kind of blue-white, then back to orange. 1 in the morning. The same time as the 7-second tone from St. Aurelius. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think whatever is happening at the source of the northeast signal is connected, mechanically, electrically, I genuinely don't know what word applies, to whatever happened at St. Aurelius at the same moment. 2 ends of one thing, responding to each other, visible from 18 stories up as a color change in a fire that has burned the same way for 2 days. The third message. I want to read this one in full because the person who sent it asked me to, specifically. They said, "Please read this exactly. Don't summarize it. I need it said the way I wrote it." So, my name doesn't matter. I'm in a flat on the 4th floor with my husband and our 6-month-old daughter. We've been here since the first morning. My husband hasn't slept. He sits by the door at night, just sits there, doesn't even pretend to read or anything, just sits with his back against it. I keep telling him to come to bed, and he says someone should be awake, and I don't argue because I think he's right, and I think I'm glad it's not me who has to be the one sitting there. Our daughter doesn't know anything is wrong. She's 6 months old. Everything is the same to her. The cot, the milk, our faces. I used to think that was sad, that she wouldn't remember any of this. Now I think it might be the only mercy in the whole thing. I just wanted someone to know her name is Etta, and she's 6 months old, and she's safe, and she has no idea. And some days, that feels like the only good thing left in the world. Etta, 6 months old. She has no idea. I'm glad, for what it's worth, that there's a version of this where someone gets to not know. I hope it lasts as long as it can. The 4th message, and then we'll get close to 8, is from Kay, the nurse, locked down in her hospital, who told us 2 days ago that the affected patients in her isolation ward had gone quiet, and that they all faced the same direction, northeast, like everyone else. She wrote this morning, "Something changed with our patients around 1 a.m. I don't know if this connects to anything you're tracking, but I want to tell you anyway. All 16 of them, all 16 quiet patients, made a sound at the same time. Not a word, just a sound, like a held breath being let go. Lasted maybe 5 seconds, then nothing again. The on-duty staff heard it from 2 floors away. Everyone heard it at once. 1 in the morning. Again. 16 patients, 2 floors apart from each other in a hospital across the city from St. Aurelius, all exhaling at the same 5-second moment that the fire changed color and the figures in my street trembled and the brief tone played from the attractor. Whatever happened at 1 a.m. last night, it reached everyone. Every affected person in this city, however far apart, however isolated, breathed out at the same second. It is 7:58. 6 checks in 2 minutes. Eight o'clock came and went with nothing. I want to be honest, those were a long 90 seconds. At 8:01, she came through. 6's voice, tired but steady. The same controlled calm from 2 days ago, the professional kind, the kind that's a tool rather than a feeling. She said, "We're 2 hours out from the vantage point, moving on schedule. Everyone's accounted for." I asked what the route looked like. She said, "Quieter than yesterday. We're moving through a residential stretch. 3 4-story buildings, mostly intact. The affected here are..." She paused. She said, "They're not in the street anymore." I asked where they were. She said, "Windows. Every building we've passed in the last 20 minutes, there's at least one of them in an upper window, just standing there, facing northeast, same as everyone, but they've moved indoors, found windows, found the best vantage point in each building, the same way we would if we were trying to get a clear line on something." The same way we would if we were trying to get a clear line on something. I asked her to repeat that because the implication needed to be said twice for me to let myself hear it. She said, "I think they're oriented toward the source the same way an antenna is oriented, and an antenna works better with a clear line of sight. I think, and I want to be clear this is a guess, I think they've been finding better positions, all night, window by window, building by building. Optimizing. Optimizing. A word I have never once expected to apply to a word like them, and now I can't think of a better one. I asked if her group felt safe continuing. She said, "Nothing's responded to us. Nothing's turned to look at us. As far as I can tell, we don't register at all. We're not part of whatever they're listening for." She paused again. She said, That's either very good news, or it means we don't matter to it yet. I didn't have an answer for that. I told her, 2 hours, same frequency. She said, copy. And then, just before she signed off, she said, tell your sister the dogs were right. Whatever happened last night, it happened to everyone. We felt it too, all 11 of us, like a pressure drop, like the moment before a storm breaks, except the storm doesn't break. Like the moment before a storm breaks, except the storm doesn't break. And then she was gone. Next check-in, 10 o'clock. At 8:40, I picked up the government frequency again. Same channel, same lack of encryption. Whatever crew is running this, they either don't have the resources to fix it, or have stopped caring who's listening. This transmission was the longest yet, 6 minutes. 3 voices this time, not 2. I'm going to share what I'm confident about, in order. The figure has been revised again. It is no longer 61%. It is 73. 73%. Up from 61 yesterday, up from 42 the day before that. Whatever this is measuring, it gained 12 points in roughly 18 hours. Slower than the first jump, but still climbing, still without any indication of slowing down. The second thing. One of the 3 voices, new to this channel, a woman, clipped and fast in a way that suggested either seniority or panic, possibly both, used a term I had not heard before. She said, confirm relay density in Sector 4. Relay density. Relay, the same word I keep coming back to. 6 described the affected finding windows, optimizing their positions, like antennas finding a clearer signal. And somewhere in a government communications room, someone is asking about relay density, as if the affected aren't just listening, as if they're part of the network that's broadcasting. The first voice, the one from yesterday, the one that talks about sectors and containment, responded. He said, relay density in Sector 4 exceeds projection. Estimate 18 hours to saturation. The woman asked, and the source? There was a pause, long enough that I thought the transmission had ended, and then the first voice said something I have listened to 11 times since, and I am still not certain I'm parsing it correctly, but here is my best transcription. He said, source signal strength increased 0-100 hours, consistent with, and then a word I couldn't make out, possibly a designation, possibly a name, possibly a place, coming online. 0-100 hours, 1 a.m. The same moment as the color change in the fire, the same moment as the tremor in the figures outside my window, the same moment 16 patients in Kay's hospital exhaled in unison. Something came online at 1 a.m. last night, and the government's own people are calling it the source, and describing the affected, all of them, across this entire city, 73% of however many people that represents, as relays. I want to say something plainly, because I think plain language matters here more than careful language. If the affected are relays, if they are part of a network, optimizing their positions like antennas, trembling in unison when the network does something, then this was never really about the people who are gone. It's about what's being built out of them. And it came online at 1 in the morning, and it has 18 hours, by the government's own estimate, until it's finished. 18 hours. That's tonight. That's roughly when the 72-hour window closes too, within a few hours of each other, near enough that I don't believe it's coincidence. 6 checks in again in just over an hour. I think she needs to know this before she gets any closer. "10 o'clock. She's on time." Her voice was different this time. Lower. Like she was speaking close to the radio, deliberately quiet. She said, "We're at the vantage point. Or, close. Last stretch now. Give me the update first, then I'll tell you what we're seeing." I told her everything. The 73%, the word relay, the source coming online at 1 a.m., the 18-hour estimate to saturation. She was quiet for a few seconds after I finished. Then she said, That explains some of what we're looking at. I asked her to describe it. She said, "We're in the upper level of a parking structure. Concrete, open sides, good cover, exactly where we planned. From here, we can see maybe 400 meters toward the source. There's a clear sight line down what used to be a boulevard, trees down the center, shops either side." She said, "The boulevard is full." I asked what she meant by full. She said, "Affected. Hundreds of them. More than I can count from here, and I'm not going to try right now. They're not spread out the way they were in your street, or randomly positioned like in the residential blocks we passed. They're..." She paused again, and I heard something in her breathing change. She said, "They're in rows." Rows. She said, "Facing the same direction, all of them, toward the source, but arranged, spaced, almost evenly, not perfectly, there's variation, but there's a pattern to the spacing that doesn't look natural. It looks like..." She stopped. I asked her to finish the sentence. She said, "It looks like a circuit board, like components on a board, all facing the same way, spaced for a reason I can't see yet." A circuit board. Hundreds of people, arranged on a boulevard, spaced like components, all facing toward whatever is at the end of that boulevard, toward the source, toward the thing that came online at 1 a.m. and has, now, under 18 hours to finish whatever it's building. I asked Six what was at the end of the boulevard, what the source actually was. She said, "We can't see it from here. There's smoke, not from the fire, something closer, something thinner, rising from ground level along the boulevard itself, like steam off wet pavement, but there's been no rain. It's obscuring the far end." She said, "But the rows lead toward it. Whatever it is, it's at the vanishing point of every row in that boulevard." I asked her, and I want to be honest, my voice did something here that I'm not proud of. It caught. I asked her not to go any closer. She said, "I know. We're not going to. We came to see, and we've seen enough to know this isn't a today problem. It's an everyone problem. And the most useful thing we can do with what we've seen is make sure it reaches as many people as possible. That's what you're for. That's what you're for." She's right. And I am going to do exactly that, for the rest of this broadcast and everyone after it, for as long as the signal holds. Next check-in, noon. She said they're going to hold position at the vantage point for now. Observe, not advance. I told her 2 rings. She said, "Always." I want to tell you about 11:58 this morning, because something happened that I was not braced for, even after everything. At 11:58, on the dot, I checked, because by now I check everything against the clock. It's become a kind of anchor. The tone began again. Not the 7-second fragment from last night, the full 41 seconds, from the northeast, the source. But this time it was different. And I caught the difference because I had my recording equipment running, and because, for once, I was looking at the right thing at the right moment. The tone wasn't coming from one direction. It was coming from everywhere. I know how that sounds. Let me be precise. My scanner, which gives me a rough bearing based on signal strength across several receivers I've positioned around this building, a setup I improvised on the first night and have been refining since, picked up the tone not as a single source from the northeast, but as dozens of smaller sources, layered on top of each other, slightly out of phase. Like an echo, except the echoes were arriving from every direction at once, fractions of a second apart. Relays. The word from the government channel. Hundreds, maybe thousands, across this city of affected individuals, each one repeating the tone, microseconds apart, building outward from the source like ripples, until the whole city is the tone. I felt it this time. Not just heard it, felt it. A pressure behind my eyes, like yesterday at 1 a.m., but stronger, and it didn't pass in 7 seconds. it held for the full 41. I'm not affected. I want to say that clearly because I know what it might sound like otherwise. I am not standing in my street facing northeast. I am sitting in this studio talking to you, and I am fine. But for 41 seconds, my ears rang. A high, thin note underneath everything else, and when it stopped, it took almost a minute to fade. If it's doing that to me, a few hundred meters from the nearest affected individual, inside a building behind glass, I don't know what it's doing to anyone closer. I don't know what it's doing to Six's group, 400 meters from a boulevard full of relays arranged like circuit components. I tried to raise her immediately. Off schedule. I know the protocol. I broke it anyway. No response. That was 40 minutes ago. Next scheduled check-in is at noon, 19 minutes from now. I am going to fill those 19 minutes the only way I know how. By talking to you. Because the alternative is silence, and I have had enough silence for one broadcast. So let me tell you what I think is happening, as plainly as I can, while we wait. I think this city has been turned into an instrument. I think the affected, 73% of however many people that is, are not random, and they are not lost, and they are not even, in the way we'd usually mean it, sick. I think they are components. Relays. Pieces of a network that has two ends, the attractor at St. Aurelius, which gathers, and the source in the northeast, which calls. And I think something at that source came online at 1 o'clock this morning, and has been building towards something, 18 hours, the government said, to saturation, and at 11:58 today, it tested its reach. The whole network lit up at once, every relay repeating. A test. If it was a test, then whatever it's a test for happens when saturation completes. Tonight, within a few hours of the 72-hour window the government has been counting down. 12 o'clock. 6 should be checking in right now. 6. Are you there? She came through at 12:04. 4 minutes late. 4 minutes that I will remember for a long time. Her voice was shaking, very slightly, in a way I had not heard from her before. She said, "We're okay. Everyone's okay. We felt it. God, we felt it up here. It was like standing next to a struck bell. A couple of us went down on our knees. Nobody fell, nobody got hurt, but..." She stopped. She said, "The rows moved." I asked her what she meant. She said, during the tone, while it was playing, every row on that boulevard took a step, one step, forward, toward the source. All of them, together, exactly when the tone started, and they haven't moved since. They're just one step closer than they were an hour ago. One step, hundreds of relays, all at once. I told her what I'd worked out. The network, the two ends, the test, the word saturation, the timeline that puts something significant happening tonight. She listened, and then she said something I think is the right way to end this broadcast, because it's the only honest thing left to say. She said, "Then we watch. That's the job now. Whatever happens tonight, somebody needs to see it and somebody needs to say it out loud, and that's us. You on the radio, us up here. We watch and we talk, and as many people as possible hear it before it happens, not just after. We watch and we talk." Here is where we stand at noon on day 2. The affected, 73% and climbing, function as a network with two ends, an attractor at St. Aurelius that gathers, and a source in the northeast that calls. Something at the source came online at 1 o'clock this morning. At 11:58 today, the entire network activated in what I believe was a test, and during that test, hundreds of relays on a boulevard near the source took a single coordinated step toward it. The government's own estimate gives this roughly 18 hours to reach saturation. That window closes tonight. To everyone listening, T, who counted 41 figures in a schoolyard. R, on the 18th floor, watching the fire change color. The parents with Etta, 6 months old, who doesn't know and maybe never has to. K, in the hospital, where 16 patients exhaled as one. My sister and the dogs who felt it before any of us understood it. And J, wherever you are tonight, keep her winning at whatever game keeps the noises outside sounding like weather. Stay inside. Stay quiet. More than ever now, if what Six's group is seeing means what I think it means. And if you feel that ringing, that pressure, note the time and know that you are not imagining it, and you are not alone in feeling it. Six and her group are staying at the vantage point, watching, talking when they can, on schedule. I am staying here, on this frequency, doing the only other half of that job, making sure that whatever they see doesn't happen in silence. Something is coming online tonight. I don't know what it does when it finishes, but I know it's been building all day. One relay, one row, one step at a time. And I know that when it happens, you will not be hearing about it from anyone else. This is the final frequency. The signal returns in 7 days. 2 rings means okay. Watch the clock with me. 18 hours.